Today, I want to make a video where I read a poem. If you follow me on Instagram, you already know this, or if you're my Facebook friend, I'll leave my Instagram in the description if you want to follow it. But today, October 27th, it marks 13 years since my dad passed away. This is relevant because I happen to have a poem that is about him, and I felt like it would be fitting to read, and I also need to post a video, so two birds, one stone. I wrote this poem during my poetry class last semester in spring, and we had the prompt of writing a poem that corresponded with the word saudade, which looks like saudade, but it's not pronounced that way. But basically, I believe it's Portuguese, and it means a feeling of longing, melancholy, or nostalgia that is supposedly characteristic of the Portuguese or Brazilian temperament. And so that's what I did. I decided to write it about my dad. I'd never written a poem about him before. Not really sure why. I guess I avoided it. But I wrote this one, and this is still the only poem that I've written about him. So that's cool. So I'll be reading it. All of my poetry is, I guess, technically meant to be spoken word. I've never read out my poetry to people, really, except for at poetry readings for my class and during workshops for my class. So that's about it. So this will be interesting. I'm debating whether or not to explain little bits in the poem, because there's some things that will make a lot more sense if I preface them. So I should probably explain them a little, not a ton, because I'd like the work to speak for itself in any capacity, but there's definitely things that wouldn't make sense to other people, so I will explain those things really quickly. Sorry about the glare, by the way. My laptop is here because I need to read the poem. I didn't memorize it, so you won't be able to see my eyes, but that's okay. So the first thing I want to explain before I start reading it is the connection with green and white. I am wearing a green and white jersey of shorts. This is his. He gave it to me when I was about 6-ish, and I've worn it ever since. It used to fit me like a dress. Now it fits me like a very short dress, but still a dress because I'm very short. But yeah, that connection is just this shirt that I've held on to that belonged to him. And another connection is the ocean/water. I was born in South Carolina, and he lived in South Carolina, and one of the few memories that I have are of us at a beach. I believe it was Myrtle. I don't really know. I was little at the time, but I remember going to a beach, so that's that explanation, and I think everything else is pretty straightforward. Well, as straightforward as poetry can be. So I will get into that reading now. Thrust me into hidden rooms filled with dusty memories, lost inside these catacombs, never seeing sun or sea. You are fire in my blood. No one seems to understand how to put you out. Get out, you have overstayed again. Burn these photos of a life miles away from what is true. Hope is but another thing used to scorch you through and through. I feel you within my soul, but with godly certainty. Locked the doors have been for years. That is how they ought to be. Thrust me into hidden rooms filled with dusty memories, lost inside these catacombs, never seeing sun or sea. I can feel the sand again, smooth as cotton, warm as spring, what I wouldn't give to taste salty mist as seagulls sing. Faded are the heartbeats here, soft enough to trick the mind. Time allows imaginings of that thumping matching mine. Mirrors help me try to form ghosts of eyes I cannot see. Wrapped in green and white I sit, hoping they are watching me. Thrust me into hidden rooms filled with dusty memories, lost inside these catacombs, never seeing sun or sea. Drink the ocean's fearless waves, find you just beneath my hands, living in a world of blue, separate from my solemn skies. Can't you hear me calling out, praying that you'll make your way back to shore, your presence strong like you never said goodbye? There I am in green and white, childish faith now burned by hope. I was always full of dreams, riddled with what could have been. Water, still as halted time, show me what I know is true. Like a twisted looking glass, I watch myself and drown in you. Whew. I realized that I've never really read this poem out loud like that. Yeah, that poem means a lot to me. I would like to explain it further. I realized throughout reading it. It goes through the emotions that I feel when I think about my dad. I didn't know him very well. I only saw him a handful of times, and I was an angry child. So the first section, I guess, is the anger, the fire in my blood, the doors that are locked and needing to keep them locked, and him overstaying his welcome and all of that, just being angry about everything. And then the second one is the joy of being at the beach, the joy of being with him, the joy of being like, hi, you are half of me, the mist and the seagulls and the sand and the warmth. And then the third section is the acceptance and the melancholy that comes with the acceptance, I guess. The can't you hear me calling out is like a last hurrah, if you will. And accepting the fact that, despite the fact that he makes me angry, despite the fact that I didn't know him very well, despite the fact that he might have not been the best person, he's part of me. The end bit is the part that always gets me, even though I wrote this. It's the twisted looking glass at the end, I watch myself and drown in you. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this was therapeutic. I don't even know if I'm gonna post this on YouTube necessarily, but it's nice to have it for myself, if not. But then again, I like to think that in general, it's valuable to be vulnerable, and it's valuable to be open about things, even if they're bad things, and be open about emotions, even if they're ones that you don't necessarily want to feel. So maybe I will post this. I don't know. Not necessarily for other people, but more for myself. Yeah. If anyone knows me personally, they know that I describe myself as a open book with a padlock, and it's a faulty padlock. Like, there's no combination, but sometimes it sticks. And I've noticed that over the years, it sticks more and more, especially on today, the 27th of October. But I think that it's important to work on fixing that padlock. So I feel like reading this poem out loud for probably the first time. I don't think I've ever read it aloud, even to myself, which is so weird. But I wrote it, and I just wrote it. I didn't read it aloud. I read it in my head a lot of times. But reading it aloud and putting it out into the world, and I know there's other people who happen to, of course not the same circumstances, but who have lost someone who can resonate with it at least slightly. So I feel like it's important to put that out there. And it's important to be vulnerable, even when that feels terrifying, even when I just kind of want to cry. Because crying is fine, but also I've realized over the years that I can do things other than crying, and it has the same effect. I guess poetry is my tears. That's the moral of this. Poetry is my tears, and it's been 13 years since those tears also included the dude who was half responsible for making me this human. But yeah, hopefully this isn't too long and rambly and sad. I just figured that words have always been the thing I turn to in all situations, whether I'm sad or happy or whatever. So it felt fitting to, let me close this because I don't need it anymore and the glare is bothering me, but it felt fitting to make a video, and it felt fitting to talk and to read my poetry, which I will hopefully be reading more of on this channel, because I have a lot of it. I'm just a scared child, and I don't like to share it. I like to share it as in people can read it, but when I read it the way it's supposed to be read, I'm like, oh god, this is terrifying. But yeah, I might be doing that soon. I would say I hope you enjoyed this video, but it was kind of just me reading a sad poem about my dead dad, so I don't know how enjoyable that is, but I hope that the poem was good, at least. And that someone gets something out of this, whether it's like solidarity and vulnerability, if someone happens to have the same situation as me, if someone likes poetry and just likes to listen to poetry, and yeah, I'm just rambling, so I should end this now. I'm gonna go drink some tea, watch some baking shows on Netflix, because that is all I do other than watch Say Yes to the Dress and just breathe, because that's all I can do today. Okay, you should also breathe. Everyone should breathe. People forget to do that. People forget to just sit and breathe, and I'm definitely one of those people, so I'm gonna let myself do that today. Anyway, I will see you soon, hopefully with something a little less sad, but also sadness is fine, actually. It's fine to be sad. It's fine to have sad moments. It's not like we can all be happy all the time, and expecting that is toxic. So anyway, I will be back soon with a different video in about a week, maybe sooner. Who knows how this week goes. And yeah.